No, I don't know the words to that song. I'm not going to sing that song. I will not learn the words or ever sing it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, whatever. Next thing you know, we'll be out at a bar somewhere and you'll be singing it.
Nah, not going to happen.
It's time to hit the trail, lock in those hubs, and throw it into low range. Because you are listening to Wheelin' with Keith and Johnny Orange, broadcasting from the Thin Line Off-Road Studio. They're here to talk about 4x4s, trucks, and everything to do with enjoying the great outdoors. Buckle up. Here's your hosts, Keith and Johnny Orange.
Well, greetings and welcome home, Mr. Keith. Just time for episode 67. Welcome back.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It has been a very, very busy month.
Indeed.
Just been crazy. As you know, I had an opportunity to go out on a really cool event, and we got lots to talk about on that.
You went to that septic conference or something down in Florida again, didn't you?
Yeah, there you go.
Man, that sounds shitty.
No, I mean, as you know, for the last month or so, you were real busy. I was real busy. We had a lot of life get in the way. Before what I did, I had an accident at work, ended up severing a muscle in my arm, and ended up having to get a lot of stitches. And
yeah, that was some pretty gruesome pictures, too.
Yeah, so that's all healed up now. But then, so of course,
I was saying on the plus side, for a week, it probably only took you like 1-2 beers to get buzzed up, though, right?
Probably.
Awesome.
And then I got the call of a lifetime. In fact,
They approved your change surgery?
Sure. Did we talk? Did we tell anybody on the last podcast what I was doing or no? Or you did on the lost episode, I think, maybe.
I briefly mentioned it in the little intro to episode 66. I don't remember about the other ones. It's been that busy.
Okay, well, for our listeners here, one of our sponsors for the Wheelin' podcast for a very long time has been Chad McKinney of Quick Draw Brand. Chad called me up about a month ago now and said, hey, I've got he goes, well, one, I got some news for you. I have signed up to do Ultimate Adventure through Peterson's 4-Wheel and Off-Road.
Awesome.
And he said, two, he's a sponsor of the event, the official adapter sponsor. He said, two, I've got a little bit of an issue. I've got a couple family things, a couple of business things. I don't think I can go on this trip. Would you be willing to take my Jeep for me on Ultimate Adventure? And of course, I had to say, well, I really don't want to, but...
you poor SOB. I mean, I know it's not one of your Toyotas. And, all those family obligations and everything.
Yeah. So, of course, I said
to him... Had to take one for the team, didn't you?
I said to him immediately, I said, yes, absolutely, I'd love to go. Kept it pretty quiet, pretty secret for about a week or two there. He calls me back up and says, hey... Some things have moved around. I can go now, but my co-driver can't go, so I still would like you to go. And so, absolutely, I took him up on that.
Awesome.
And the plan was hatched to do Ultimate Adventure 2020.
Awesome.
I guess just starting out here, you want to hear about, kind of chronologically what we did and...
I've heard the phrase, there's the only, stupid questions one not asked, but that's a stupid question. Hell yeah, I want to hear about it.
All right. Well, without looking at a calendar, I don't know what the date was, but Chad and I had hatched this plan that we were going to leave from his shop in Pleasant Plain, Ohio, which is just outside of Cincinnati.
I was in Ohio yesterday.
Nice. On a Tuesday, I was going to drive down and pick up the Jeep and then head to the to the ending point of the Ultimate Adventure.
Okay.
Chad was going to then fly in, rent a car, and go along with another gentleman, and we were going to then have our rigs shipped from South Dakota, where the ending point was, to the starting point, and then we would pick up our rigs. So
you run it in reverse?
There's a lot of weird logistics here. So I guess starting out with, so I get down Tuesday morning, fully planning on loading the Jeep and hitting the road. It gave me a almost 2-day buffer to cover the, 1,300 miles up to Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, Piedmont, South Dakota there. And so I pull in, I go into the shop, and man, I just immediately was like, what is going on here? Because I did not walk into a shop where there was a rig ready to go. I walked in to see a 2012 JKU with no interior. Front suspension not fully put together yet. Brake lines or brake system not bled. A lot of wiring not done. Winch not wired up. All sorts of final details. I looked at Chad and I go, what's going on? He goes, it has been a mad rush. And he goes, in every single thing, as you and I know, in the off-road world, every single thing that he did to the rig, it ended up compounding where, okay, now I got to do this, and I got to do this, and I got to do this.
Yeah, that happens. That happens a lot.
A quick rundown of his rig. He had purchased a 2012 JKU, stock vehicle, stock sport with a 3.6 liter V6. And he had originally done the quick draw transmission swap, which is the quick draw bell behind the 3.6 to get rid of the lame 6-speed that they use in those things. And he went to the Tremec TK 4050 5-speed, which has got the 6.3 to 1 first gear, something like that. So it's basically the new version of the MV 4500.
Yeah.
So he had done that. Well, then he decided he was going to take this Jeep. He originally wanted to take his Power Wagon. But he just knew he wasn't going to have time to do that, so he decided to build the Jeep.
Nice.
Bought a set of Rubicon axles, re-geared them to 538, trussed them, did all sorts of stuff.
Lockers?
Stock Rubicon E-lockers.
I forgot about that. Yeah, nice.
Did all of that. Falcon was the official tire sponsor of Ultimate Adventure. They supplied them with a set of 38-inch Falcon.
Nice.
I think they're called Wild Peaks. Pretty aggressive tire, kind of a mud terrain type tire. As a side note, those tires worked awesome on the trip. No problems with them whatsoever. And I was really amazed at how well they did off-road and had almost zero road noise.
Nice.
Very, very impressed on the tires. He had the new Warn wheels, which haven't even come out yet.
I've heard about them. I haven't seen them yet.
Yeah, they sent him a set of the Warn wheels.
Nice.
Full metal cloak, body armor.
They make some cool stuff. My brother has one of those on his JK.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, beautiful setup. I mean, he had everything all laid out in this thing. And so I walked into the shop and he handed me a wrench and a screwdriver and was
what to do.
Exactly. He has two shop guys there. Huge shout out to them, Tim and Chuck. They're both in their probably mid-50s. I could be dating them wrong here. Might even be a little older than that. But one of them, I want to say it was Tim. I could be mistaken on that. Had recently fallen off a ladder and broken his ribs. So here we got Tim with broken ribs, or Chuck, one of the two. Anyway, one of those guys with broken ribs. And myself down there, I had just the day before gotten my bandages and my splint off my arm, but I still had all my stitches in my arm.
Yeah.
And it was real weak. Couldn't even bend it certain ways. So I'm working left-handed, trying to work on this rig. We did about a 22 hour thrash fest to get this JK going.
Yeah.
We were out there till the wee hours of the morning. About 3 o'clock in the morning, we finally get this thing running and put together, and we went to go pull out of the shop and we couldn't even steer it. Just stuck to the ground. Like it was like the front axle was just welded in a straight line.
What the hell did you do?
Well, that was the thing. So we started taking a look at this. Oh, that was something else. Our steering was an issue too. He had what he believed were stock JK drag links and tie rods and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of the ones he had was 2 inches too long. So we ended up having to modify the drag link to make it work because we weren't going to get a drag link at midnight.
Yeah.
So we ended up, we're going through this whole thing. I'm underneath this thing, and I'm looking at it, and I says, I know it's a front axle issue. So he had put RCV shafts, which, by the way, those were awesome. I know they're expensive, but, man, the RCV
They
shafts.
are impressive. I'll give
very
them that.
impressive. We pulled the passenger side RCV out, and, all of a sudden we could steer the thing, and we're like, okay, it's staying fully engaged locked in the front, but we still have no power to the front end, so we didn't know what was going on, why it was doing that. So I got the diff cover off. I'm in there, fishing around in the E-Locker diff, which I have not messed around with the E-Lockers a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I'm kind of just figuring out what's going on in there. And Chad, I thought at first that he was like disappointed or something, but he went off into his office. Mm-hmm. And like I said, this is about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I get under there, and I'm working with Chuck and Tim, and, we're kind of half asleep. We got a couple of beers in us. We're figuring things out. So I'm in there, and I'm messing with it. And finally, I figure out after about 20 or 30 minutes that the factory, there's like a button that is a switch that lets you know that the locker's engaged on the Rubicon axles.
Okay.
It had seized up, and it was keeping the locker engaged all the time.
Huh.
So I yell over to Chad in the office, and I says to him, I go, hey, Chad, I go, I think we got it. Come on out here. We'll have this thing together in just a second. And he goes, I hear him yell back, okay, well, I guess I'll hold off on this for a second. I said, okay. So he comes out, and he's like, what's going on? Show him what's going on. We end up cutting the end of because it was a weird, very fine pipe thread, so it wasn't something you could just put a bolt in.
Yeah.
So we just cut the end of the sensor off, and we plugged the sensor back in there.
Done that.
And sure enough, boom, now we got steering. So
Nice.
Chad goes, he kind of laughs, and he goes, come on in the office with me for a minute. And he goes, look what I was going to do. He had pulled up on his computer in the office. He was about to hit the Buy It Now button from the local Jeep dealership on a brand spanking new Rubicon. And his plan is because he didn't think we were going to get this one going, and he knew we needed to be to the event, he was going to buy a brand new Rubicon. We were going to throw the 38s on it, the winch on it, and we were just going to go do Ultimate Adventure.
That would have been pretty epic. I'm not gonna
Well,
lie.
yeah. And I said, well, what are you going to do with it when we're done? He goes, well, maybe I'll just flip it when I'm done or something. I said, well, man, this is whatever. This is crazy. Take it for a test drive, shakedown run up and down the road. Everything seems to be working pretty good. At this point, it's like 5 in the morning, maybe. I mean, we've been really going on this thing. So, Chuck and Tim were like, yeah, we're going to go back home for a minute, get some sleep. We'll be back in the morning first thing, which already is morning, basically.
Yeah.
So I crawl in the Excursion. I get like 2 hours of sleep. I hear the Jeep pull in. Chad had taken it for another shakedown run in the morning. And so we take the thing. We load it up on the trailer. We got underneath it. As we're getting under the trailer, we realized we hadn't fully tightened down all the suspension bolts and everything. So so myself and Chuck and Tim, we're underneath this thing with wrenches, and we are just tightening up every bolt we can find. We're just double checking, triple checking everything. Get it all strapped down. We had a couple. We had to still put the winch rope on it. We had a couple little things we had to do. We got all that done. I probably hit the road noon, 1 o'clock, something like that. Finally got on the road, and man, I'm just dead on my feet.
So you're heavily invested in these Bang drinks, then, right?
I much to my surprise, I didn't have any energy drinks, but I drank a lot of coffee.
Same difference.
A lot of coffee. So
Yeah.
So we ended up hitting the road, or I hit the road, and I started heading towards Piedmont, South Dakota, where Mount Rushmore is. Now, at the time, this was a secret. I couldn't tell anybody where I was going. Ultimate Adventure keeps everything on total lockdown. They don't want you publicizing where you're going or anything like that. So besides my fiance, there really wasn't anybody knew exactly where I was going. Yeah. So I get up there. So I drive. I made it to... I made it to... trying to think of the name of the town now. Anyways, made it to I know what it was. I made it to Wall, South Dakota. The second night, because I did 2 nights on the road, I think is what I did.
Okay.
And I made it to Wall, South Dakota, which is really cool. Wall Drug. They got the famous downtown. Look it up if you ever want to check it out. It's really cool.
I assume they're known for their wall construction there or something. Or
Yeah. No,
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. So the first night I slept. That's right. It's the first night I slept in just a rest stop. I just pulled in, And then I drove the whole next day.
So you're saying you rested in a rest stop?
Yeah, pretty
That's
much.
so literal. I love it.
Drove the whole next day. Got about 6 hours of sleep in the rest stop. Drove the whole next day. Made it to Wall, South Dakota.
Nice.
Pretty late at night. Everything was shut down. All my clothes were greasy from working at Chad's. Other things. So I was like, maybe I can find a laundromat or something. Sure enough, they had one on the wall, but it didn't open till the morning. So I
Gotcha.
slept there in a parking lot in the back of my truck. Shout out to my buddy Lucas. He loaned me a tent cot combo that I ended up using on the trip, and it fit just perfectly in the back of the Excursion. So I kind of had this
Nice.
like privacy, and I had
Nice.
something decent to sleep on, which was really nice.
Yeah.
But so we get to Wall, and or I keep saying me, because it was myself on the way up there. Hit the road the next morning with the plan to be in Piedmont by 10 or 11. I was able to hit a laundromat, went to Wall, got some of their famous donuts and coffee.
Nice.
Really good donuts and coffee and all that.
You didn't bring any back to share. What the hell?
I probably
No,
could have.
you know what? No.
On the way back, Chad
No
and I
apologies.
okay,
No.
all right.
No, you didn't do it. Doesn't count.
They're very good. You got to try some
No,
sometime.
don't keep talking about it.
You ever been to South Dakota?
Nope.
Oh, you need to get there. then.
Furthest west I've been is Minnesota a couple times.
Well, so we end up. Why do I keep saying we? I don't know. Anyways, I end up getting up to Piedmont, and I pull in, and there was a guy up there who I guess has been a supporter of the event in various ways over the years. He had volunteered people to park their rigs at his farm there
Nice.
and his shop, which he's got he builds rock crawlers and stuff like that.
Oh,
So,
cool.
we pull in, and I say we at this point because we had other people pulling in as well. And then as I'm pulling in and unloading, Ian Johnson from Extreme 4x4.
dude is awesome.
Yeah, pretty neat dude. He's got the
He's
guy.
like the Bobby Flay of the off-road world.
Yeah, he's
I
got
love it.
the Guy Fieri hair and all that.
Or Guy
yeah.
Fieri. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I meant. Not Bobby Flay.
He pulls in just after me, and this is the guy I was supposed to carpool with. So he pulls in, we shake hands, meet, we get talking for a minute. Chad pulls in. He had gotten a flight in. He pulls in about an hour later. Our hotshot trucker gets there. We put Ian's Jeep and Chad's Jeep onto the hotshot guy's rig.
Nice.
And then we all piled into a car to do another 12-hour drive.
Nice. So my 8 hours on the road yesterday doesn't seem so bad now.
I tell you what, there was definitely a lot of midnight oil being burnt. Chad had showed up with a Jeep Compass, and you've met him before. He's like 7'18"
so
or
he had
something
the
like
sunroof
that.
open and a helmet on top, right?
His knees. I took a picture and texted it to Stephanie. His knees were literally on the dashboard as he was driving this thing.
That's
and then he
awesome.
switched out after about 4 hours and slept in the passenger seat while Ian drove. And that was really a surreal thing to me in the beginning, because I guess I can't say grew up, but as a young man, 21, 22, I was watching Extreme 4x4 and Spike.
Yeah.
With Ian Johnson and Jesse Combs. And
I've watched a lot of that stuff just online over the years when I had internet and I could actually watch some of it. But I never really had the internet speed to watch a lot of it. Never had cable or satellite, but I love those shows. Anytime at friends' houses, I'd watch them. Loved it.
His show, at least the Extreme 4x4, was one of my favorite ones because
Yeah.
to me, they were building real world rigs with a lot of times junkyard parts.
Yeah.
In fact, I learned a whole lot from their FJ60 episode where they had chopped up and built kind of a tube buggy out of an old rotted out FJ60. And so anyway, so this guy to me, I've never been a fanboy type person of famous people and stuff like that, but it was pretty cool because this is like a dude that I've looked up to for a long time. So I meet him, and then I get to immediately go on this 12-hour car ride with this stranger who's also this famous person,
Yeah.
and got to know him pretty well on the car ride. And he's telling me life stories and all sorts of stuff. And tell you what, he is on all the time, and he is who you see on TV.
That's
It's
awesome.
not an act, which I really got to respect. That guy that you see on TV, I learned over the entire week, and we hung out a lot, but the stuff that he really knows his vehicles.
Yeah.
He was constantly wrenching on his or somebody else's. He just, he just jumped right in there with
That's
tools
awesome.
and knowledge. Very, very knowledgeable guy. He actually, and I hope he doesn't mind, but he told me a little bit of his life story. He originally was a shop teacher up in Canada.
Oh, really?
And then
Nice.
he had applied to be on Monster Garage, was on Monster Garage, and somehow
I knew there was
through
another
that,
show he did.
well, he did like one episode of that,
Yeah.
and then he somehow moved that into being able to try out for Extreme 4x4, which then he
Nice.
got that and did that for many, many years.
That-
And that was really how his career took off.
Yeah.
So it was really cool because, you know, he was able to tell me, you know, you and I doing the media things with all of the off-road world too.
Yeah.
He kind of said, this is my path. Now, it may not be the path we take, but
Yeah.
it was the path that he took. And I thought it was really cool, and it was very informative, and he was very open about all of that, which
That's
was
awesome.
really, really cool. And he's very approachable, just really, really
Yeah.
cool guy. We had a lot of fun with him. So Ian, myself, and Chad, we drove, and we got up really late that day, that night. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. We got up to Kalispell, Montana, which
Nice.
is where we actually started Ultimate Adventure.
Nice.
So we checked into the hotel that night. There was a host hotel. Next morning, of course, everybody starts meeting. And this is, you know, my eyes are, you know, balloons walking around the parking lot. And I'm looking at some of the most famous off-road rigs, both from the magazines and TV and
I
stuff
remember
like that.
you'd done a couple Facebook Live videos, I know.
Yeah,
Never
absolutely.
mentioning locations or anything like that, of course. But I remember seeing a couple of those rigs, like the orange double-ended JK, whatever they call that thing.
Yeah, I think that's what they call it, the double-ended JK.
Yeah, I remember that so vividly from the magazine, and just reading, and couldn't wait for the next issue to read that.
That's a really cool rig, and that entire event, speaking of, quote-unquote famous people, that was piloted by Clifton Slay, who is a really old name in the off-road world. People
Yeah.
today maybe don't even recognize that name because he's kind of out of the off-road world, at least as a business owner. He had started Poison Spider Customs way back in the day,
Oh, I didn't
and
know that.
he is credited with being the guy. If you talk to anyone, he is the one who pretty much created the modern tube buggy, tube car phase. He's the
Nice.
one that would bring, like, people were building tube cars all the way back forever, but he was the one that started to really put engineering function into them and
Nice.
really started to streamline things and figure things out. And a lot of what Clifton Slay did really set the ground for what today they're doing at King of Hammers, and they're
Yeah.
doing all these other places. So
Nice.
got to meet Clifton. He's super cool dude, very soft spoken. Same thing. He'll kind of tell you about what he did in life, trials,
That's
tribulations,
awesome.
things like that. And I'll tell you what, man, of all the guys on that trip, I don't think he had any problems with the double-ended JK. He doesn't
Nice.
own it. It belongs to Motor Trend, but
Yeah.
he drove it, and there was not an obstacle that he didn't just go at with that thing and just made it look like he was just pushing a shopping cart through a...
That is awesome.
It was just like, wow, he made that look really easy.
That is awesome.
He's a world-class rock crawler. It was so cool to watch him do that. But-
Nice.
so yeah, anyways, in the parking lot there, we had the double-ended JK. We had the UA Scout from last year. They put the
That
2.8
thing looked
Cummins
cool.
in.
Yeah.
Vern Simmons' new UALRJ, he calls it. He did a
Say that again?
UALRJ.
Okay.
So he took and built a LJ, did a 2.8 Cummins swap on it, but then also running a quick draw bell, as is the Scout that I just talked about.
Nice.
But he's running the 2.8, and then he put a World War II MB grill in it, but cut out the bars on the sides to emulate the British SAS
yeah.
forces who used to be in Africa back in the day.
Oh,
the
that's
whole,
cool.
The whole thing was like the British SAS theme. It was
Yeah.
super cool, super cool.
That is awesome.
And that was another rig that I don't think they had any problems with on the entire
Yeah.
trip. I know he kept messing with like some canvas tarp stuff on it that he was kind of like making as he went along. The same thing. He
That
was
doesn't really
thrashing.
count, though.
He was thrashing to the last minute, so
Yeah.
he was like still doing modifications on the trip.
Nice.
Pardon me.
Don't die. I want to hear the rest of this.
No, I know.
Please don't die. I need more.
It was super cool. So we're out there in the parking lot. Everybody kind of, introduces each other. They also, at the same point, because this is 2020, they had to tell us, okay, here's the rules with the COVID thing, masks all the time, social distancing to the best of possibilities. Mm-hmm. And Clifton Slay was actually, I jokingly called him the entire trip like the COVID commander or, the Rona Ranger. And he
awesome,
because he had one of the toughest jobs there. He was taking our temperature twice a day.
Jeez.
And he was filling out the paperwork every day and really making sure that everybody was being COVID compliant.
Oh, that's good.
And obviously a job he didn't want to do.
Yeah.
He volunteered for it. He did an awesome job.
That's cool.
And so they were doing all that. So they tell us about all that. And they gave us all the stickers and all the swag, the goodie bags, and total. I could talk all day about some of the stuff that they did there, but and so we stickered up the rigs because you got to put the Ultimate Adventure windshield banner on,
Of course,
and you got to do all the other stickers. Now, of course, this was day one as well, where I'm getting the cameras in my faces, which was really odd because I'm not great in camera. You and I.
No, you're not.
Yeah, we've dealt with stuff before.
No, you're not. Hammered, you're not bad.
Well, bone sober the entire time.
Ugh.
So these guys. But after a while, I got used to it. They just became.
You get to the point they're not even there.
That's exactly it. And my favorite thing, all the pre-trip emails. Mm-hmm. They had all these points about the event and said, do this, don't do this, blah, blah. And by all means, they were pretty lighthearted emails, but the one said, pro tip, don't worry about the camera guy until he starts screaming.
Yeah.
So
I've been that guy.
And we actually became friends with a lot of the camera guys, and they were super cool. I had a lot of fun with them, too.
You mentioned don't worry about that. I was told that at a football thing, project back in the day, place I worked for, recording a high school football game. So this guy's like, I want you to get right in there, make sure you get this shot. Okay, no problem. Sitting there looking through the viewfinder, got plowed into by half the football team.
It'll happen, man. It'll happen.
Yeah, you just, ignore it and you'll be fine.
So, basically it was kind of like a big parking lot party, and we were just getting things put together. Officially, Chad had the first carnage of the trip in the parking lot before we left.
Oh.
So,
what happened?
On the way there, part of the whole things probably weren't tightened down correctly. He had this aftermarket snorkel setup, which I don't know who made that, but they had what I jokingly called the cereal bowl. It was like a clear cereal bowl type looking thing that was supposed to be on the top of this. It took a filter media.
Okay.
Yeah, I lost that somewhere between Cincinnati and South Dakota.
Nice.
It was just gone. And then we're in the parking lot, and we're checking over the rig, and we're looking at everything, and we tightened a couple more bolts because we found yet a couple more that were loose. Yeah. And I look at the custom exhaust that Chad had whipped up himself that night, because the exhaust wasn't even finished on the rig when we left. He had whipped up this custom exhaust, but he had used muffler clamps everywhere instead of welding it.
Uh-oh.
And basically everything had started to like twist and kind of deform.
Yeah, they do that.
And I said, man, we need to get this thing welded.
Yeah.
And so he's on his phone looking for a muffler shop, calls a couple places. They're like, oh, well, we can get you in 5 o'clock tomorrow. He's like, no, I need it now, And so
let's find a Harbor Freight.
So this other really cool dude in UA, in Ultimate Adventure, they've got the group of kind of the original guys, and then some of the guys that have been doing this for years and years and years. They call them the cronies.
Yep.
And the cronies are very helpful. They're super cool guys. And so what they did, or not say they, one of the cronies they call Skinny Kenny. And nice. Skinny Kenny comes over, and he's got his 70 Chevy Blazer up on 38s with a fuel-injected small block.
Nice.
Beautiful, beautiful rig. He goes, hey, man, I got a Premier Power welder under my hood.
I've always wanted one of those things.
He goes,
so cool.
I've used them a couple of times now, and I've had mixed results, but his was tuned in perfectly. And he comes over, and so he gets it all hooked up. He gets his throttle set right, because you got to set your throttle on the Premiers. Mm-hmm. And he just looks at me, and he hands me the ground in the welder, and he's like, are you a decent welder? And I'm like, I'm okay, So... stick welding, of course.
Yeah.
And so I got
my least favorite.
I know.
I'm terrible at it. I need practice is all it means.
So I got under there and I stick welded Chad's exhaust back together.
Nice.
In the parking lot. And that
So
was
how soon after that did they have to repair it again?
it lasted the entire trip until
Oh, nice.
2 days. The last 2 days of the trip, the rearmost weld broke and we had a little bit of a rattle. But it held together.
Nice.
So, So yeah, we got everything put together, everything kind of all good there, and then that night, Ian had, which was really cool. He's like, "Hey, I'm gonna buy pizzas for everyone." So he, and I don't know if that was through his Big Tire Garage, which he does now. That's like his new thing, which I'd recommend watching. They're like 10, 15
I found it on
episodes.
Facebook. I saw it in one of the tags or something and added it, but I haven't had time to do much of anything social media wise lately.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's pretty bad, actually.
Same way.
Yeah.
Well, he says, "Hey man, I'm gonna buy pizzas for everybody." So he literally just bought this huge stack of pizzas,
Nice.
and we all kind of had like a pizza party in the parking lot.
That's awesome.
which was really cool. And so then we took,
Very high school. I love it.
yeah, absolutely. And so then, everybody went to bed. We had to get up early in the morning. We had our first official drivers meeting, which you got to have every day. Mm-hmm. For anyone out here who's kind of curious about Ultimate Adventure, if you're not familiar with it, if you didn't grow up reading it in Peterson's Four Wheel and Off Road, shame on you.
Agreed.
Yeah, this was the 21st one, and it was the first year that it will not officially be in Peterson's Four Wheel and Off Road magazine
Yeah,
because that
that's
magazine
sad.
no longer exists.
That's
It's
so
now
sad.
going to be in Four Wheeler magazine and on Motor Trend TV. So
Well, it's still living, though, so that's all that really matters. It's continuing.
exactly.
Means
And,
I still have a chance one day to go.
and it's still called Peterson's Four Wheel and Off Road.
That's awesome.
Ultimate Adventure. Of course, that could change in a couple of years,
Yeah.
but they're going to try to keep it that for
Nice.
an amount of time. But so yeah, we had our first drivers meeting, and basically during the drivers meeting, they don't tell you where you're going.
That's what I've always loved about it.
Yeah.
The unknown. I mean, you're there. Let's go. Let's go for a ride.
That's basically what they do. They say, hey, this is what's going on. And, they might tell you, hey, it's going to be a really sandy trail today, or it's going to be, rocky, air down here. Or they'll say, we've got 200 miles to our first fuel stop, whatever. They'll give you those basic pointers, but beyond that, you don't know where you're going.
That's awesome.
And so that's what we did. And so, day one of wheeling, we ended up going to the Blacktail Wild Bill OHV area. And
That sounds cool.
yeah, it was really cool. But here's the deal. I gotta make fun of Chad one more time. Because actually that was day two. Correction. So, all right, I'll make fun of him for the day two part.
Okay.
Day one, we drove out to the Blacktail Wild Bill OHV area, which is an area that's been put by the Big Sky four wheelers, and that's a club out there.
I was just gonna ask. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, they've been together. I think he said almost 40 years. I could be
wow.
wrong on that, but very
Nice.
old club. And they have just a ton of man-made obstacles, plus natural trails, rock crawling. Really a nice mix. It was a great, I don't want to say a break-in day, but at the same point,
warm-up.
it was a good warm-up. Most of the obstacles did have bypasses there, which other parts of the trip did not.
Yeah.
So if somebody didn't feel that their rig was capable to go through a certain obstacle, they just didn't do it.
Yeah.
But to everyone's credit, I don't think anyone pulled any of the bypasses,
Nice.
including, which this was when I started to just I was amazed. You've seen the pictures, John. I put them online. If anybody wants to see some pictures, you can go to Keith Codette's personal Facebook page. You'll see I did a bunch of albums that are public. You can look at all my pictures. Shared some of them to Wheelin', shared some of them to the museum
I
page.
do want to go through all those again. I've been hit and miss on them.
So we had on this trip 3 full-size vans.
Nice.
We had Quigley was the official drive shaft / 4x4 van sponsor.
Nice.
So they had brought their, I don't know what year it was. I might guess maybe 08, 10 right in there. Full-size Chevy, lime green, bright van.
That's awesome.
Dana 60 front. They had taken the Quigley van.
Nice.
And then they also, Quigley being a sponsor, they, I guess for a number of years, and I didn't know this, they supply the camera van for the event.
Nice.
And the camera van wheels the entire event as well.
That is
So
awesome.
the camera guys are back at the tail, but
That's
they're still
awesome.
wheeling. And so we had 2 Quigley vans.
And I know the camera equipment, how that stuff can be to handle. I have more sympathy for them than any of the rest of you on this trip. I'm sorry.
Well, I tell you what, man,
but that's awesome. They get to wheel, though.
Oh,
That
absolutely.
is seriously cool.
So we had the lime green Quigley Chevy, and then they had a Quigley E350 van that was also Dana 60 front. And then we
What
had
was it? Was it a diesel?
no diesel vans. Then we had a invited reader. His name is escaping me at the moment. Really cool dude though. He took a G30 or G20. I'm not sure which one it was. So the 80s, early 90s style Chevy van. Same thing, Dana 60 front.
Nice.
Like 38s or 40s on it. And he did it, the theme was he did it as an ice cream van. He even had an ice cream.
That is awesome.
So it would play It's a Small World.
that would be annoying.
Chimes. He didn't do it constantly. He would hit it a couple of times
He'd probably
a day.
get stabbed that first day if he played it.
And every once in a while, he'd pull over and he'd be like, "Hey, you want some ice cream?" And he'd literally he had a cooler full of ice cream, and he would hand you an ice
That
cream
is
cone or
awesome.
something.
That is
So,
awesome.
but those 3 vans hit all these main obstacles.
Nice.
And Tiger, who is over there at Quigley, I don't know if he owns the company. I didn't fully understand that. I don't know if he owns or if he's a representative. Or I know he's been there forever. But Tiger and his wife Renee, they had their Quigley van, man, and he was hitting some of these obstacles. The one I was really impressed with that first day, there was they had some buried tractor tires, big, you're talking 60-inch tractor tires, the big ones. And a couple of the full-size rigs and shorter wheelbase rigs were getting hung up pretty bad on them. And not that they were bypassing them, but they weren't taking the hardest line. Tiger comes up around the hill on this thing, and he just hammers it and goes right over the top of those things in that Quigley van.
Awesome.
And we've talked about Quigley vans in the past before.
Yeah.
I was like, my eyes, I couldn't believe it. It was the coolest darn thing, man.
That is awesome.
So, it was just, day one of wheeling was just absolutely, it was absolutely insane. I mean,
Yeah.
we were out there all day long at the Blacktail Wild Bill OHV area. There was 2 gentlemen. Once again, probably should have written down some names, but shout out to them. They were trail guides that day. It took us all over the place, and they just had a great time. Now, what was kind of nice, they always tell you on the UA trips that everybody, camps every night. Not always the truth. Sometimes they camp, sometimes they hotel it, this and that. That first night, after everybody had a pretty good chance to kind of shake down their rigs, we went back to the hotel. Oh, let me back up. One last thing about Blacktail. So we're out there at Blacktail. Mind you, this was Chad's first wheeling trip ever. He had never been off-roading more than tooling around a little bit at Silver Lake. Okay.
Poor guy.
So
bastard.
so he gets out there and he's hooked day one.
Oh, yeah.
He's going all over the place in the Quick Draw brand Jeep. I mean, this thing is doing awesome. So, he at first, I don't want to say he was being tender with it, but he was, he's kind of learning
Cautious
it. Okay,
concern.
yeah, he'll
Yeah.
learn this and this. He gets up to this obstacle, and this is one where the majority of the group bypassed it. I'd say maybe we had 26 rigs total, and I would say maybe 6 or 7 of the rigs did this one. Well, there was this kind of this pretty good rock climb going up, and then it had a little gully that went down, and then it went up a little higher, and there was a tire to the one side, and there was some, I don't know if it was a man-made kind of bouldery thing, but then it had about a 4-foot almost sheer drop off. And a couple of the other rigs that did it, they went up it, and then they get to the drop off, and they kind of cautiously go down, and they're riding it on their skid plates. And they get down, and then they kind of goose it at the end and get out. So Chad gets up towards the top, and he's like up towards the top. He got through the rock garden pretty good. He gets up, and he gets up more by the tire and stuff, and he starts to kind of like hit it, and he keeps spinning. You know, he doesn't quite have the traction. He's spinning his tires, all four tires. You know, lockers engaged, and he's like getting up to the top, and he's getting up to the top. Now, I had said to him, I'd yelled up to him because I was spotting him. And I said, you're going to have to roll back and goose it, you know? And he's like, okay. And what I meant was just a little bit of a just love tap, get the wheels spinning a little bit.
Where this is going.
And, you know, get over the top of this thing. Now, I was trying to video him, so I went back and I said, just hey, wait for me. And so I go and I got my camera and I go to hit video on it as I hear, woo, wham! And I mean, and he hits the top of this obstacle, and he had 4 feet of air.
Oh, shit.
And he's going along, and I mean, and he just comes sailing through the air, slams down on all fours, and I missed it totally on my camera.
Bummer.
Because I didn't have time, because he hadn't waited. And I mean, it was so loud that Austin, the camera guy who was in the camera van, really cool dude, shout out to Austin. Austin comes running up the trail, and he goes, what the hell, man? What just happened? And I'm like, Chad just jumped that entire obstacle. And he's like, he's got to wait till the cameras are rolling for stuff like that. He's like, I'm going to have to watch this guy in this trip. And sure enough, Austin really watched Chad the rest of that trip and didn't disappoint. There was definitely some moments. So, you know, but that was our first damage that we didn't repair, but it was damage nonetheless. He landed so hard he bent his rear axle shaft. We didn't know that till the next morning, though. You know,
get on the highway.
Yeah, I guess I can kind of explain that. Well, like I was starting to say, we went back and you know, to the same hotel that night. As we're going down the road, Ian pulls up next to us, and he's like, "Hey, what are you guys doing for dinner?" And we're like, "I don't know." He's like, we're all going. He had his camera guy, Matt, from Big Tire Garage with him. He was only with us the first couple of days. Super cool dude. He's like, hey, we're going to go out to dinner tonight. We're going to get some steaks. Well, apparently the steak place was closed, so we went to this really cool Mexican place instead.
Nice.
Had some good Mexican food and sangria and all that.
Nice.
So next morning, you know, we're all sitting there and we're ready to load out. We've got all our gear packed now because we're checking out of the hotel. We know this is our last night in Kalispell. Which, as a side note, Kalispell, Montana, is where my daughter learned how to swim.
Ha! Nice.
When we drove up to Alaska in 2012, the old Outlaw in there, she wanted to swim in, and back then, it's been since remodeled, but back then their pool didn't have a deep end or shallow end. It was all like 8 feet deep.
Yeah.
And she wanted to swim, and I said, well, if you want to swim, you got to just come in here and swim. And she was like 5 years old, and she learned how to swim. But
nice.
So,
nice.
Anyways, so we got to pull out, and we get all in line. We had our second driver's meeting. Everything's going good. You know, they got the cameras on Trent and from Trent from Peterson's and Vern. I'm not exactly sure who did the driver's meeting that morning, but Christian Hazel, I'm sure. So Trent McGee, Christian Hazel, really cool dudes, by the way. They're both from the magazine.
Yeah.
Hardcore wheelers. A lot of fun meeting them too. So we hit the road. This is where I'm going to make fun of Chad again, though.
Okay, I like it.
We are going up the road, and we're like 2 miles out of Kalispell. In fact, I don't think we had actually left Kalispell proper. I mean, we had left the hotel. We're driving through Kalispell, and Sam McGee, who's behind us in his, I don't know what they call that thing. It's like a green tube car. Okay. He's behind us. And we always called it the boat. Kind of looks like a boat on wheels. It's full-on tube car.
Nice.
He gets on the radio, and he's like, hey, quick draw Jeep. And we're like, yeah, what's up? And we're on VHF radios. And he goes, there's something going on with your rear tire. I think it's coming off. We're like, oh, crap. So we rip into a closed-down abandoned gas station. We get out. Chad's like, well, it's got wheel spacers on it. Maybe one of the wheel spacers came loose or something. So we jack it up. We're checking everything out. Everything's tight. But, we had seen in the mirror a visible wobble when he said this on the driver's rear tire. So we're like, all right, well, maybe we bent a wheel. And we're hoping not because, worn wheels, brand new wheels and all that.
Yeah.
But they were prototypes, essentially, so you never know.
Yeah.
So we grabbed the spare off the back, put it on. He goes to restart it. Click, 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 click. Starter's done.
Oh.
Fortunately, Chad, much to his credit, had brought us spare starters, 4 spare axle shafts.
Nice.
I think a water pump, all sorts of spare parts.
Yeah.
So we pull the starter out of the back of the Jeep. Boom, we got that thing on in like 20 minutes.
Nice.
The guys had kept going up the road. And that's, I guess, side note here. Typical wheel and trip, when you're doing multiple rigs, the etiquette is that if you have a breakdown, everyone pulls over, takes no man left behind, takes care of that person. This was the first wheel and trip I've ever been on that was not like that. But it wasn't upsetting. It was interesting the way they did it. If somebody had a breakdown or a stuck that couldn't be immediately resolved, they assigned a crony to take care of it. So
Nice.
we had like 8 or 9 cronies on this trip. And they would say, all right, who's the closest to who? Boom. Okay, you take care of them. So Sam stood back and took care of us.
Nice.
And he stayed right there with us in case we need anything. And the guys went on ahead. So we're there, putting the starter in, get back on the road. Tire's still wobbling the same. We're like, man, that axle shaft's bent. So, but the thing was, it wasn't noticeable physically. Like, nothing in the Jeep. You couldn't
Nice.
feel it. You couldn't,
That was minor.
What's
Whatever
that?
it was a minor bend.
I don't know. It was about an inch out of round. It's pretty good. I mean, you could definitely see that thing just going down the road. But weirdly enough, now he had put sandbags in it, and I got to give credit to the Falcon tires again because I know if I did that on one of my Swampers, I mean, we probably would have lost all our fillings on the trip. That thing ran fine. It didn't seem to mind the
Nice.
abuse. It didn't even wear funny.
Nice.
The whole week, we had the spare axle shaft. We kept saying every night, "Well, we'll probably replace it in the at the camp tonight."
Yeah.
We never did. It never got any
Nice.
worse. In fact, we think on one of the obstacles we bent it back a little bit and straightened it out a little bit because like halfway through the week it got a little bit better.
Nice.
But
Nice.
so yeah, so we start heading out and we're going along, driving, and that's something else. If you follow UA and you're interested in this event, you can go to Motor Trend TV, and they have at least 7 or 8 of the old seasons on there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Each episode's like 15 minutes long.
Nice.
They'll do a whole season. It's like 8 or 9 episodes.
It's a new thing to binge watch. I love it.
Yeah, oh yeah, they're great. They're great.
I love it.
So you kind of get the idea. Back in the day when Rick Payway, the former editor of who's since retired, 4-Wheel and Off-Road, he would do usually a wheeling day, then a road day, a wheeling day, a road day. Kirsten Hazel decided to change it up a little bit, him and Trent. And they made it the plan to wheel every single day.
I like that too. Break us up a little more.
What's that?
You're mixing it up. You're not having a whole day of just driving with nothing.
Yeah.
You're having fun all day. I love it.
Well, it's not all wheeling all day long. You still had some road stuff. So that was day 2. We had a
Oh,
little...
yeah, that's, it breaks up the monotony of one over the other.
Exactly. So we drove, I don't know how many miles outside of Kalispell, and all of a sudden, we see all the UA rigs. Mind you, we're behind now. We're almost a half an hour behind. We see all the UA rigs pulled into this museum on the side of the road. We're like, oh, this must be where we're going. So we pull in. It was called the Miracle of America Museum.
The what of America?
The Miracle of America Museum.
Miracle?
Miracle.
Okay.
Miracle.
Okay.
Not America. Miracle.
Yeah, I got it. Miracle.
Miracle. You don't like the way I say miracle?
Well, no, it sounded like you were saying miracle, like America. But
Well,
anyway.
Miracle of America Museum. And this museum has apparently been there in some form or another the better part of 60 years.
Oh, cool.
And they collect American stuff.
Nice.
Military vehicles, steam tractors, steam
Cool.
trains, motorcycles, guns, a Roswell Area 51 set with like aliens and
Nice.
stuff,
Nice.
old hovercrafts.
How big is this place?
I would say probably the better part of 15 acres. Wow. And as you're walking, so they got a main building, then you walk out the main building, and there's like an Old West town and all sorts of stuff.
Oh, cool.
And each building has got different themes and stuff.
Oh, that's
in it.
awesome.
Yeah, if anybody's ever up that way in Montana, recommend it. We spent, I think the whole group was there for about an hour and a half. We were only there for about an hour, and we did not see everything. We did not have a chance to read everything, but I tell you what, I could have spent half a day there.
Oh, believe it.
Oh, antique cars.
Sounds like we need a wheel and road trip.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was super, super cool. But I guess I jumped forward a little bit in my chronological thing. We did actually have another breakdown before we got to the American Museum.
You guys or someone else?
Someone else. So we had just left repairing our starter and our axle shaft. And we're driving, and we see Skinny Kenny's Blazer sitting there in a Napa parking lot. And we had heard some chatter over the radio, but we didn't really fully comprehend what was going on.
Yeah.
Apparently, Skinny Kenny was going down the road, and all of a sudden, according to the write-up online, but I thought I'd heard something different, apparently a trans line blew, and everything under the hood caught on fire.
Oh.
And so he wheeled into a Napa with his truck on fire, and like 6 guys got out with fire extinguishers and put it out. But it melted most of his wiring harness under his hood, all sorts of stuff. But he's in a Napa. So another crony stayed with him. In fact, I think Sam stayed with him and somebody else, and they continued to work on it. Well, we headed up the road. Fortunately, they got the Blazer back on the road, and he wheeled the rest of the event. So that was pretty crazy too. So that was it was a pretty major fire. It was not like a little smoldering thing in a corner.
Yeah.
Like it was pretty fried under the hood looking.
Jeez.
So pretty crazy. So after we left the American Museum, we went and did what's called the Carruthers Lake Trail, which is mostly like a rock and dirt type road with a little bit of rock crawling, not like crazy stuff. Beautiful scenery, though. Beautiful, beautiful scenery. And at some point midday that day, Dave Chappelle, not the comedian. But he's on Dirt Every Day with Fred Williams, who was also on the trip this year.
Nice.
With his tube sock TJ, the one he drove underwater.
Nice.
So you've seen that video, I'm sure.
I'm sure I have, yeah.
Anyways, Dave Chappelle joined us. He had his Maz Grande, he calls it, his Mazda that he built in a driveway in like a week, put some Dana 60 and 70 with 717 gears under it.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, let's start with that again?
It's like a Mazda B truck from the early 90s.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And he calls it Maz Grande.
Okay.
And it's got airbag suspension. So no springs, no leaf springs, no coil springs, airbag suspension. He's got Dana 60 front, Dana 70 rear, and 717 gears.
Holy crap.
I think, memory serves me, I think he might have actually joined us the day before because I think he was at the Blacktail Wild Bill thing. But that was the first time I really got to meet him and speak with him and stuff like that.
That's a cool build.
Yeah, it was
It's weird, but that's cool.
You'll have to see photos. And it's real low and did awesome on it. And then, the rest of the day we were kind of doing this, I'd say kind of crazy, off-road, kind of trail, but back in the woods, and we're just going along. And this is where I want to do a shout out to another one of the sponsors, Onyx Off-Road. It's an app-based system that they have. They had set out the whole trail system along with Trent, and they had everything on there. And so we were able to, anytime we were on the trail, we were able to look and go, okay, well, we got approximately this much left, or this is where we're heading, or if, we got behind, we could follow
the heads-up display of a video game.
Originally, they were supposed to give us GPS-based iPads as loaners, but I guess the company they got them from, they weren't GPS-enabled, so we ended up using our phones.
Nice.
So not Onyx's fault. It was whoever they were working with for the rentals. But, that was pretty cool.
Nice.
And, we end up going all the way up there, and as we're heading up, I think this was the night, and I could be wrong on this, but we're almost up to our campsite, our first campsite, and they're like, we get up and Christian gets on the radio and goes, "Hey guys, we can't camp at the campsite that we were planning on camping on because somebody else is there." And what it was there was a whole film crew up in the mountains, middle of absolutely nowhere. They're filming a horror movie. So
Nice.
And they were like all waving at us as we were going by, and they've got their crazy outfits on and stuff like that.
Nice.
And so that was pretty neat, and they're real nice people. But then we ended up keep wheeling up the trail, and we got up to this beautiful lake that was on a reservoir. And it was our first camp night. It was cold up there, but
I believe it.
We ended up having a couple little fires, and everybody parked up there and
That is awesome.
and camped up. And so well, what do you think, man? That would be the end of
day 2.
officially day 2. I think. Do you think we should make people wait till next week for?
I think we should. Yeah. There's what, a week of this?
We had a week. Some days are a little bit less to talk about than others, but. It might be a couple episodes here.
I like it. Yeah, let's make them wait. Sorry, guys. I know you waited a long time for us to get back.
You got
you're
any
gonna have to wait for more.
you got any final notes or anything you want to tell people? I know we need to make an announcement. Wheels in the Woods.
Oh yeah,
October 10th.
Yep.
Make sure you get there.
so that'll be the week this airs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're listening to this and you want to come up to Michigan to Wheels in the Woods, make sure you go on Facebook is the easiest way, and just look up Wheels in the Woods 2020 and you'll find all the information you need.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to do, John?
No, I mean, we just got that coming up. Looking forward to that. Kind of scheduled work this week to be there. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about your Thrash Fest finished projects. I won't go into details, but that's probably what mine's going to turn into right now.
You better have her there.
Oh, if I have to trailer it, I'll have it there. I hope I don't have to trailer it.
All right, folks. Next week, tune in to hear about
Part 2.
part 2 of Ultimate Adventure.
Yeah, but that being said, a huge thank you to Andrew, our producer. Obviously, without him, none of that. Where'd he go?
I don't know.
Oh, well.
Probably the same place I need to. I need to run to the restroom.
Well, you do that. I'll finish this. So, huge thanks to him. Without him, none of this would be possible. If you're interested in more information about anything of us, check us out on Facebook. We also have the group 4x4 Talk, which is facebook.com/groups 4x4 Talk, or just search it. A few quick questions to get you in there, and you can kind of interact with us, see everybody's posts about things, stories, all that good stuff. Don't forget to check us out on Patreon. And then, with that, thanks for listening, and have a good one, everybody.